Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Tees. With our inspirational tees, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Tees. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Tees at dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. Hey guys, this is Ernest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the 3 tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $E James, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, aka Friend to Fatherless Daughters on Instagram, and I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. To deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Because I believe everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. So again, let me thank you guys for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest. We are here with Dr. Nicole. How are you doing?
I am well. How are you doing today?
I am good. We're going to jump right into it. So, Dr. Nicole, tell us who you are, a little bit of who you are, and what it is that you do.
All right. Well, here we go. My name is Dr. Nicole S Jackson. I am your trauma healer, resilience builder, and healing box filler. What I do is I help you understand that healing from trauma is not forever, but being healed is forever. And we do that through self-reflection.
Okay. All right. So again, we finna jump right in it. So when we talk about trauma, right? Because I've had different people on. How would you define what trauma is? How would you define the word, I guess?
Okay. So I define trauma as a situation or situations which have rocked your emotional foundation. And it's actually causing you to be disturbed in your day-to-day life.
So, okay. So what would be, and just in general, because I know that we all go through different traumas and sometimes we don't recognize it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that everybody goes through some kind of trauma. So what would be, just in general, a trauma that we may be going through right now? And I just say we as whoever, as a collective, we may be going through that we don't even recognize that it's a trauma, but definitely the ramifications of it will show up, in another year or whenever it shows up. But like right now, we don't even recognize it. Like, what would be something that we may be going through right now?
Well, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and say that the last 2 years have been absolutely filled with trauma. Some people have been, during this pandemic, some people have been able to stand strong, and there may have been some things that have occurred and they thought, you know what, nothing, I'm still at it, right? So I'm good. but there's something, and even if they slightly missed it or they just brushed it off, there's something during this time that is going to surface again later because it
Mhm.
wasn't dealt with. It was just looked at as and then of course we know there are those people who are highly traumatized and they know this, right? But it goes to show that situations do not affect everybody the same, right? And how people respond to it is not going to be the same, and how they manifest that the fallout won't be the same either. Some is going to be early, some is going to be later on, some is probably going to be not at all. So there's levels to this.
Right. And I was gonna bring up the pandemic. That was gonna be my follow-up because I already knew that I was gonna mention that anyway. But just because the reality of it has been traumatic.
Mm-hmm,
When we just think about the lock being on lockdown, when we
mm-hmm.
think about the divorce rate going up, when we
Yeah.
think about domestic violence going up, when
Mm-hmm.
we think about the loss of jobs, the loss of income, that whole part of it. When we think about the loss of loved ones, and
Right.
not only just the loss of loved ones, but sometimes the number of loved ones. I was a part of a workshop I did a couple weeks ago, which was a forgiveness workshop. And in this workshop, we were dealing with forgiveness. And one of the young ladies who was a participant was saying during the pandemic, she lost 16 loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, can you imagine, the trauma that caused, and how, in this environment that we're in now, it's like, okay, well, it's just a pandemic. But can we really think about the effect that that's going to have post pandemic? Like once we're out of this and things kind of calm down and get to that new normal, because they'll never be normal again. When all those things start coming up, you start thinking about how much money you lost, how much property you lost, how much whatever you lost, how many loved ones you lost, and
Mm-hmm.
actually have to deal with that in that real mental space. I think that's going to be a big thing, for the country as a whole, dealing
Yeah.
with the trauma of this pandemic.
Absolutely. The impact is going to be massive. And to be quite honest, you're already starting to experience the impact. Just think about how people are relating to others, right?
Mhm.
Like people are still, the impact one is fear. And that's going to affect your trust, right? And so you're not going to trust people are probably being honest, or you're not going to trust people that you can be safe around people. So the impact is already starting. Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
And the impact even bigger is judgment, right? And control. Some people feel like they've lost control. So what happens when people feel like they lose control? They feel like they got to gain it back somewhere, and they're
Hmm.
going to go after people they think that they can do that with.
Yeah.
Um, our society is whoa, I don't know that people are absolutely ready for what it's actually going to look like, right?
Hmm.
We're only getting a glimpse of it right now.
Yeah. And another part that I think that a lot of people don't. I mean, it's right in their face, but I don't know if they look at it. Is the separation of people, and just how, at one time, let's say if it was racism, and then
Hmm.
it's classism. Now it's vaccinated, unvaccinated. You know what
Right.
I mean? And so now your neighbor is turning into your enemy, because of this pandemic, and those who are in control, is making up the rules as they go along, because I remember when it first started, I was like, all right, you got to be indoors. If you get, if you catch the coronavirus or whatever, you got to be indoors and locked away for 2 weeks. Then it went
Hmm.
to 10 days. Then it went to 5 days, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, which
Yeah.
one is it? Is we safe? Ain't we safe? Then it's like, hey, come back to work. You're like, well, I know my sister was saying they had told her, the company that she worked for, to come
Hmm.
back to work, told the people to come back to work. And they was like, well, you got people that's still sick. You can tell they're still sick. They still coughing or whatever. And they're like,
Right.
oh, don't worry about it. Just come to work. It's like, but now you're finna get everybody sick.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's the impact that we're looking at. People are at each other when in fact the solution when dealing with any situation like this is really to come together
Mm-hmm.
and really understand the perspective of the person who is opposite of you.
Right.
Right. And the hope is that that's how the fallout is going to be dealt with in my mind, is people are going to start understanding it's just like any other everyday decision.
Yeah.
You have to respect the decision of the person who's making the decision, because they're making it for a reason, even if they're not sharing it with you. And it doesn't mean that you have the right to try and have control, right? But those people have
Right.
been traumatized, especially people who have lost people in this pandemic. Right? All of a sudden, this is real. This is super real. This is like, but you got to do it this way and you got to do it that way. And if you don't do it this way, you're really not helping the people, because I know this is real because I lost someone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
Right?
it's so much. I think is out of control, but it's so much out of control, because even with myself, I one of the things I do, amongst other things, is I do home health care, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I take care of people with disabilities. And I
Okay.
remember when sort of in the beginning of the pandemic, some of the clients got sick, and some of the um, staff, our older staff, and they were afraid, just to be honest, they were afraid. They're like, what is
Yeah.
this new thing? And now they got it. What if I get it? And which is understandable, because none of us really knew what to expect, and so then you go into the whole thing of vaccinated or unvaccinated, like the client's not necessarily getting vaccinated, because they have to have the freedom of choice,
Okay.
so because they can't verbally say yes or no, you can't just put that on them, you know what I
Right.
mean? And so from the staff point of view, okay, now how does that affect me when I'm working with them? Knowing
Mm-hmm.
that they've, had it at one time, they got over it, but who's to say they're not still carrying the virus, whatever, all those questions. So
Right.
it turns into a whole, thing, and people not really knowing how to communicate with each other and how to deal with it around the whole thing. Like I said, you got the people that you've been working with for years, and who's afraid of whatever decision that they're making. Like you said, they're making that decision for a reason. But now you got a vaccinated person and an unvaccinated person who's been working hand in hand for the last 10, 20
Right.
years. But
Going
now
at
they're
each
looking
other.
at each other, you know what I mean? Like, well, you should get it.
So
Well, you shouldn't get it.
you can look
That
at
turns
this
into a whole
as
other thing.
right. You can look at this as an active traumatizing situation. If
Definitely.
you can look at it like that, right?
Yep.
People are still in the process of dealing with something that is causing a trauma response, right? And until this settles, it's going to be active. So yeah, you're starting to see the impact, you're starting to see the fallout, but until the situation stops and everybody can settle in,
Mm-hmm.
you're just it's continuous. So and trauma
Right.
is it's personal, right? It's so personal. So when you feel like somebody is violating something so personal to you, this is why you're getting the emotions that you're getting.
Right.
Because it's like, but this is why I'm doing it and I'm traumatized by it and you're not understanding me.
Right.
And everybody's in their own trauma response bubble right
Right.
now.
And I was going to say bubble. That's definitely was going to be the same word I was going to use. Like everyone's in
Yes.
their own little mini
Yeah.
world, you know what I mean? And trying to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
things that they're dealing with. Um, so one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, so I know that, when you have most people where that find their purpose in helping others with whatever the situation is, it comes from a place of self-experience. I know my guest, not my guest, but my listeners like, oh, here we go with this again. However, I gotta say it. God gave me a quote, a couple years ago when I was on my own journey, and that
Mm-hmm.
quote is that pain births purpose, purpose births progress, and progress is the evidence that God is at work. And so you have to, as you're going through your journey and dealing with your own pain, it gives you a purpose to those who that you can emphasize with, who's going through the same thing that you've been through. So knowing that, from my own experience, again, I believe that most coaches or people who care for people does it from a place of experience. So since you're the trauma doctor, as much as you're willing to share, what would be your experience that led you down into the service in which you do?
Everybody knows I will tell you that I am an adult survivor of childhood maltreatment, period. I am so transparent on that. I have a recent book, The Soul Inside Out, a collection of thoughts while on a healing journey. That's my story. And in there, I tell you, I went through a lot, but I came out with a roadmap.
Okay.
Because what I went through wasn't for me. Because not everybody comes out with the mindset that I came out with of, I had to figure out how to heal on my own. And I don't think everybody else should have to do that. Right? So I went through it because there was something for me to grasp and build on my way out. Right? So I smile big when you say that, because that's what I tell everybody. What I went through wasn't for me. And at this present moment in my life, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything, because I am who I am because of what I went through.
Right.
But yes, go ahead.
Oh, no, you finish. You finish.
And it drives me to make sure that people don't spend as many years as I spent trying to heal and find themselves. Because why? Because why? Why should anybody have to do that? I've had people that I've worked with who held on their trauma for 45 years. And then they were like, where were you 45 years ago? I wasn't born 45 years ago, but bet. I'm here now.
Right.
And I can help you. Right? So that's my drive. My drive.
I love.
Go ahead.
I love that you said that with that with your experience, because it is true. We all go through different experiences. Some of us go through the same experience, but it's when you get on the other side of that experience that makes the difference. And I say that, some of us, God gives us a choice when we're going through a situation. And that choice is, are we going to be the victim or the victor of this situation? And those of us who come out on the other side as the victor, then he gives us the responsibility to go back and help the victims, And so not everyone comes out of their situations or their experiences with that mindset that, oh, it's bigger than me.
So do you want some stats on that?
Sure.
Want some stats on that? I to get my doctoral, for my doctoral study, I did a study on the resilience of women post-childhood maltreatment. Okay. And what I found is less than 10% of people who go through any of trauma come out resilient.
You said less than how much?
10%.
Less than 10%.
So let's look at some numbers. Let's say back in 2017, there were over 70,000 reports of child abuse. I could be a little off on the number, so whatever, let's just use it as an example. 10% of that came out resilient. And not a lot of people.
Right.
Not a lot of people at all.
And I think that's part of the reason why, I think God chooses a handful of people who can handle the responsibilities that come with going through some of the things that you go through. Because of that same thing, like you just said, everybody don't come out on top, and some of them, are maybe a little stronger than others, and some of them just need some help along the way. And so that's where us as the victors who come out on the other side and realizing that, okay, I went through this, but I went through it for a reason, more than just for my well-being. Now it's my responsibility to reach back to those who are going through the same thing or similar, to help them along the way. And so that's why I love talking to coaches. I love talking to people that's in that same mindset, of service, and because we get it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
love to hear that we get it. So I always ask the backstory, like, what is your story? Because you came to this place for a reason. It was a journey to get you
Mhm.
to this place, of where that you can look back and help somebody else along their journey. So I love to have that conversation.
And
Um,
you're absolutely accurate. Healers always have a backstory. There is a reason that you get into what sometimes is a thankless field.
oh, definitely.
So you're
Definitely.
accurate, very accurate.
I know one of the things, but and I, since we mentioned the pandemic earlier, during the pandemic, you had our essential workers, and so I feel in that category on two sides. In the construction side, because construction, the infrastructure got to keep going. So
Yep.
that was essential workers, and then the healthcare system. So that
Yep.
was essential workers, but it was like we were in some cases forced to work this overload of that came because so many people were at home and whatever it was had to be at home. So now you have this whole infrastructure that you have to carry on your back, right? And so
Hmm.
we're going to work, we're still doing what we're supposed to do, but they're giving out checks and stuff for people to sit at home, and the checks is higher for them to sit at home than it is for us, and we're the ones doing the work. We're the ones that's keeping the country going, and especially on the healthcare side, keeping clients healthy or whatever. Even in the hospitals, people
Hmm.
coming in exposing themselves to the virus,
Right.
but we're doing all the work, and it's like, okay, where's our benefit or something, since we are essential and we chose to be,
Right.
but at some point, yeah, I did choose it, but where's the thanks? You know what I mean?
You know
And
what?
so,
It's thankless. It's thankless, but the reward that you get is absolutely amazing, right? The reward that you get is amazing because you get to see the amazing outcome of people healing,
mhm,
right? You absolutely get. That's what it is for me. It's because in the end you still end up with, sorry about that, um you still end up with seeing what it is, you remembering why you do what you do.
right.
You see what I'm
And
saying? So
definitely,
that's why.
definitely in healthcare, uh, definitely one of the, especially home health care. So when we talk about nurses and doctors and RNs, as you go up in the not dynamics of healthcare, you do get financially, the things get financially better, but down on the ground, what I like to call down on the ground with the home
Yes.
health aides that's going to people's homes and taking care of them,
Yes.
those who are disabled, who is taking care of them, on that lower level, you know, it's not the money. You know what I mean? It's because we have a heart for people and we love what we do, which is the
Yes.
reason why we do it.
Yep.
And especially if anything, that showed during the pandemic, because again, you got people sitting at home, getting checks, making more than what you're making, and you're doing all this overtime and everything else. But there's a part of you that said, I do it for free, really, because it's a part of me that's just who I am. I love people, I care for people,
Yep.
and that's why I do it,
Yep.
and yeah, so we share that, that whole thing. So another thing I wanted to talk about, and I think you kind of mentioned a little bit of it earlier, because I've had different people on who have talked about self-care,
Hmm.
and I'm definitely big on it. That's why I have them on. But yours seem to be from a different aspect, not necessarily self-care in those words, but your words were self-reflection. So
Yes.
how is that process? What does that process look like?
So self-reflection, self-care. I advocate self-care wholeheartedly. I even have a program called The Power of Self-Care. Okay. Wholeheartedly, I advocate that. But self-reflection is its own beast, to be quite honest, because it requires you to go within, to tap in to your healing, which you have the power of, and understand what it is that you need to heal. Some people, we as trauma survivors, and I say we as trauma survivors, many times hang our healing on everyone else. We believe that we have to go to someone else in order to start the healing process. When in fact, that's the furthest from true, but that's how our medical system is set up. So what do? That's what you're told. You need help, go there. However, then you end up in therapy for 30, 40 years with no resolve because you hadn't taken the time to look within, understand where you are and what you need so that you can tell that therapist what you need so that they are not guessing and they can then give you what you need to help you heal. Quite frankly, I am complimentary to everyone's healing process. I provide you the tools. I provide you the skills because that's important. Some people will provide you tools and no skills. And here you are with a hammer and you don't know how to use it. Right?
Yeah. Been there.
You got wood to build a house and you don't know what you're doing. Right? So self-reflection allows you to sit with you. It allows you to say, you know what? Yeah, I got a problem with that. I got a problem with this. It allows you to begin to understand your emotions and the pain attached to your emotions and understanding how to begin looking at it. When I hear this sound, this is how I'm going to respond. This is going to be my trauma response to that because it makes me feel this way. This is not taught. This is not how people are operating. And to me, you can't even begin to say I'm healing until you have sat with yourself. And this is why. Because you can go out there and you can have people pouring into you and you've hung your healing on them. And when they leave, your healing goes with them because it wasn't yours and it didn't come from you.
I think a lot of times, when we talk about self-care, I think it's a big misunderstanding sometimes for those who may have not been introduced to it and don't really understand what it is. And I see a lot of it sometimes with mothers, and because usually a mother, and not just mothers, but women in general, I would say probably have more of a time with it. Because it's almost, they almost see it as a selfish act instead of a selfless act. But I believe that it's probably the most, I guess you could say it's selfish, but it's probably the most selfish but unselfish thing you can do, which is to take care of yourself. Because if you can't take care of yourself, how can you take care of anybody else?
How can you take care of anybody else if you can't dig deep? Let me tell you, I tell people all this. I have a whole chapter in my book called Selfish. I kid you not. And it's telling you that it is okay to be selfish. It is okay. And it's actually, I say, selfish is the new self-care. Okay? Because it is. Because if you can't take the time to pour into you and refill you, you're going to give from an empty cup. And at one point, you're going to be giving from fumes. You have nothing.
Right.
And so then when it comes time, like who's pouring back into you? If you have no one pouring back into you, you have to pour into yourself. You have to find the things that are going to rejuvenate you and revitalize you and get you back to that space. But not only that, when you begin to do self-care as a mother, as a woman, you begin to understand your self-worth. You begin to understand how to set boundaries, enforce those boundaries, and understand who is there, who is there for you or who is there for you.
Right, right, right.
You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I get it.
Um, and it's okay to be selfish. I tell everybody, because the first thing you hear is, I don't have time. You don't have time for what? Is what I ask them.
Right.
I say, you got time. I said, what you're going to do is you're going to get your calendar. I don't care what kind of calendar you use. You like to write the old fashioned way? Do you want to put it in your phone and have a sounding alarm? Start out by putting yourself in your calendar for 5 minutes every day. Make yourself a meeting. Make yourself the most important meeting that you're going to have every day. And even if that 5 minutes is to step away and take a couple of deep breaths and just recenter yourself throughout the day, then go ahead and up it to 10, 20. In a minute, you're going to have it at an hour and nobody going to be able to tell you nothing.
Right.
This is my time, right? We start in baby steps. And it's okay to be selfish. It drives me crazy when people say, you're so selfish. You're supposed to be selfless for who?
Right. And one of the things I like to tell people who have a problem with that, like, you do have people who you're responsible for, that you give yourself to and that you love. Right. But your love will turn into resentment when you're not getting fed. When you're not getting back what you need, it's going to turn into resentment because it's going to be like, I do all of this for everyone, but no one does for me. Well, we go back to talk about those boundaries. If you don't do for you, why would they do for you? You know what I mean?
Because you haven't showed them how to do for you. Like, people, honestly, people don't this is why self-reflection is important, because you have to be able to show people how to care for you, how to love you, how to talk to you, or they're going to talk to you any old kind of way. Like, if you let someone talk to you any old kind of way and it flies, they're going to believe that that's how you like to be spoken to.
Yep.
And that's how they're going to continue to treat you. That's why self-care is important. That's why self-reflection is important, because you begin to stand out, right? And you begin, I'm not a doormat. I don't walk on eggshells. And if you don't like it, that's a you problem, not a me problem. You get to that point, and it is so freeing. Can I tell you how freeing it is?
And I think someone, I heard the analogy one time, and they asked, the question was, if you went to an ATM and the ATM gave you $100 and you didn't put nothing in, and you just went to it and pushed 100 and it shot out $100, and you went the next day and it shot out another $100, how many times would you go to the ATM and when would you stop? You know,
right?
It was like, I will stop when it stopped giving, you know, right. And it says, so you have to think of yourself as the person that's given, as the giver. You're that ATM, and that other person, just like they said, they're going to keep coming as long as you're giving. And then when you're done giving, you have nothing else to give, then they're going to walk away. And
that's why,
empty.
Right. And that's why I said you got to understand who's there for you and who's there for you. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
That's the best analogy ever to put it out there. It's so accurate.
Right. And so at some point you have to take your own control, first of all, putting yourself first, like I said, making that time for yourself. Definitely. I was just talking to someone the other day, and they were telling me that they were feeling better that day, which they had been feeling, a little some kind of way a day before or whatever. And I was telling them, I was like, I'm 45, and they're in my age group too. And I'm like, we're at that place now. We have to make self-care as part of our thing. It has to be part of it now. We're getting older, and I was telling them, you need to start going to get massages. I'm like, when was the last time you got a massage? Like,
we
never,
speak the same language,
like,
sir.
You got to start getting massages.
We speak the same language. Oh my.
Yeah, especially when your body is, again, I'm 45, so my body already changing. I'm already getting older. And so when your body is already changing, just with age, you gotta do some maintenance. You got to keep it up. You got to learn how to relax. You got to learn how to mentally relax. and nobody's going to do it for you, especially when you have kids, especially when you have a husband or a wife, a job, and a family. The list can go on and on and on.
The list can go
my question
on.
would be, where do you fit on that list? It's your list. But where's your name at?
Right. Let me tell you, when I first started really understanding the importance of self-care was after I had my son and he got older. And, everybody's like, I can't go to the bathroom. I can't do this. I can't do that. Right. I invented something called mommy timeouts. Okay. Let me explain mommy timeouts to you. Mommy timeouts meant I was exercising my boundary. Yes, you're my child. However, I'm not putting you in timeout. I'm going into timeout. I'm going into my room and I'm setting a timer. And every time you talk to me, my time starts over. And so if you want to see me anytime soon, don't come to this door. Don't stick your little fingers under it. Don't say mommy. Don't summon me. Because I'm going to be here for a minute. Should you do that? Right. And it's those small things. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't abandoning my child. There was other adults in the house, right? But I knew that you have to exercise those things. And it's unfortunate when people, I give that disclaimer because sometimes people, the first thing they say is, well, you're a mom and you had the kids and so you're responsible for them. So what do you mean you need a break? What do you mean that you need time for yourself? What do you mean if you didn't want to have them, you shouldn't have had? If you didn't want to care for them, you should stop it. Stop it now. Knock it off. Because it doesn't matter that you had children, be it 1 or 10, right? You still need to refill. Because you have people pulling at energy that they have no right technically to have. And so understanding how to replenish that is important. But I'm going to say this, we're starting too late in life understanding that.
Yeah.
We need to, what it is we're a reactive society, right? We're reactive. We're not proactive. We're not teaching our children at younger ages that this is what you need to do. You need some time to yourself. You need to center. You need to ground. At 4 years old, I taught my son to breathe deep when he became upset. People think, oh, they're too young. No, they're not. This is where it starts because you put it into their brains, their little computers, and you put it into you circulate it through their daily routine. And as they grow older, it remains. They don't lose it. But then as people are getting older, they're trying to figure out how, right? They're trying to figure out how. And for some people, it's too late because they've already fallen into the cycle of what society believes a person should do if they're married or if they have children. And this goes for men and women, because some men, they work and work and work because their responsibility is to care for their family. When are they refilled?
Right. And yeah, like you said, I definitely agree with you 100% on that, because we're not taught. And then a lot of times, unfortunately, before we get to the point where we think, okay, let me sit down and rest my body, our body sits us down, because the body is like, I can't take no more, next, you got people having strokes, you got people having heart attacks, you have your body is saying, look, you're not giving me no rest, and I'm at the point where I can't operate on full potential. So I got to set something down, and so now your body starts shutting itself down, and so this whole self-care thing, it goes, it's so broad because it reaches in so many different areas, every area of our life. And we really have to stop and think and put into practice, and like we've been saying, if you don't think about how you're going to take care of yourself, if you don't take care of yourself, what I mean? It's like, as a man, especially being in construction too, we do physical work. And it's like, all right, I got to go to work. I got to do this for my family. But at some point, you got to start thinking, okay, how is me pushing myself every day? It has to be a point that I stop to recharge. I stop to rest my body, because just mention construction, because that's what I do. It's hard on your body. Yeah. I'm a bricklayer. Most of my bricklayer friends who are a little older than me, right before they retire, they got hip replacements. They got what is it? Carpal
Carpal
tunnel.
tunnel.
You know, they got all these things. Now they trying to get everything fixed. You know what I'm saying? Before they retire. You know, but it's like at some point we got to start addressing this when we're coming in as apprentices, 18 years old, 19 years old. We just getting into the trade and say, okay, this is what, you know, we got this opportunity to build these things and have a great career, but let's teach you now, just like I'm teaching you how to lay brick. Let me teach you how to take care of yourself. Let me
Yes.
teach you how to lay the brick the right way so you don't get carpal tunnel. You know,
Right.
we have to start addressing those things early, to our youth, to our, you know,
Right.
ourselves, our brothers, sisters, whoever, you know, to put that self-care in our everyday lives, to pencil that time in,
Yep.
whatever it is, so that when we get to 20, 30, 40 years down the line, we're still just as healthy mentally and physically as
Right.
we were, you know, years ago.
And yes, and you are, but that's how it works, right? We're trying to learn something new, and we're slow on the uptake. But I think the problem is that people overthink it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Self-care can be as simple as taking a walk, going out to the back and doing some gardening, you know, sitting down with your feet in some water and doing a self pedicure. It's not something that has to be, you know, extravagant all the time. Just take time for yourself. Don't overthink it. If you feel like you're tired and you feel like you need to get some things done, then go ahead and do that. You know what I mean? You go
Yeah.
ahead and do that. You go ahead and take care of that.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the things that I started doing, I used to run on the treadmill. Right.
mhm.
I think my exercise thing, 30 minutes on the treadmill every day. Get on the treadmill, put my earphones on, I'm running. One day, I'm gonna go to the park. I went to the park. I walked around the park. Kind of goes through like forest preserve or whatever. I
Uh-huh.
walked through the park, changed my life. I don't want to go to the treadmill no more. You know,
Right.
that time of being by myself and walking and being in nature and hearing the birds sing and that whole thing. It went from being a thing of a physical exercise, which is where it started. You know, I'm just trying to get some exercise, but the experience of walking outside and the nature and all of that became
Yes.
a full body relaxation thing for me, you know. And so
Yes.
now I'm like, oh no, I don't even want to get on the treadmill, you know. And it don't matter whether I walk or whether I run, but being outside, taking that time. I went from 30 minutes to an hour, so now
Right.
I'm taking an hour every day, you know, just to myself. You know, sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I don't, but just
Right.
that detox time, just to relax
Mhm.
your mind, relax your muscles, you know. And we have to start making that a part of our everyday
You have
experience.
to make it a priority, just like you make things a priority for your children, for your wife, for your husband. You have to make yourself a priority. And that's where self-care comes in, without a doubt.
Definitely. Okay, I got one more thing before I let you go that I
Yes.
want to talk about. When we one of the things that you talk about is leaving a trauma-free legacy, right?
Yes.
And so when I think about just the word legacy itself, to me, is it kind of says, you know, what's after me, right? So
Mhm.
what's coming after me, right?
Yes.
So when I think about leaving a legacy, I'm thinking about leaving something for my children, right?
Hmm.
So when we talk about leaving a trauma-free legacy, in order to begin to live a trauma-free legacy means at some point we were living a trauma-filled legacy, right?
Yeah.
So just as an example, give me maybe one thing that you may address that may have been a trauma-filled experience that you say, okay, that was your experience. Let me show you how to, channel that and switch that over into a trauma-free legacy, so you're not passing that on to your children.
How we speak to our children. So
Mm,
growing up, it was, you're a child, you're meant to be seen, you're not meant to be heard. You follow instructions, you don't have an opinion, right?
yep.
Like, be quiet. The elders are speaking, and what you need to say, it's like it's like peasant level. Let's go ahead and be honest. It's peasant level. So you're a peasant, you're a child, stay in a child's place. So, right?
Yeah.
So then as your children grow up, you wonder why they don't talk about how they feel. You wonder why so many things are happening to them and you don't know until it's too late.
Right.
Because growing up, you were told the same thing. You're meant to be seen and not heard. Right?
Right.
So then you get a generation of people who suppress. They have higher levels of trauma. They really don't know how to deal with the things that they face because no one's ever taught them how to process it and talk about it because they were supposed to be quiet. Right?
Right.
I'm going to use me as an example because I guess I'm the best example that I have. Growing up, I was the peacekeeper. I wanted to see everybody happy. Right? I didn't want to see anybody upset. But that also meant growing up, people took advantage of me. People walked all over me. People talked to me how they wanted to. And my voice was not heard. You see what I'm saying? It just wasn't heard. Right? And I'm sorry, hold on just one minute. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
All right.
Too many people are operational right now. Okay, so I take that as dealing with my child now, right? I tell my child that you have a voice. If you have concerns, it's okay for you to come and talk to me and tell me your concerns. Please don't sit on them. Do not suppress them. Do not walk around, because even as in childhood, parents were never wrong. They were always right, even if they were wrong. And one of the questions you would get is, so you tell me I'm lying? And they dared you to say yes. Right? They dared you, even though they were dead wrong. You said no. You complied to what it is that they wanted, and you carried that because you couldn't process the fact that the person was absolutely wrong, but you couldn't tell them. So as you grow up into adulthood, when people are wronging you, you don't necessarily tell them. You just deal with it, and then here we go back together like nothing ever happened. Right? So you're reliving that trauma in general. Right? I tell my son, and this is the legacy that I'm leaving for him. You have a voice, use it. I'm telling you to use it, which means you can't get in trouble. Because the one thing I don't want is for you to think that someone has the right to walk over you and shove your voice back down because they don't want to hear it.
Right.
I tell my son when I'm wrong. If I thought something and then I find out that I am inaccurate, I will go to him and apologize and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I was wrong. And to me, that's leaving a legacy that he's able to expect people, one, to treat him with respect and respect his space and respect him as a person, and understand that if you're around people who can't tell you when they are wrong, those are the wrong people to be around.
Right, right.
So then he is going to transition that over to his children. And hopefully this is now the legacy that is left. You have a voice. And although you go ahead.
I think that's very important, definitely with men, to be able to apologize and even apologize to your child. One of my previous episodes that I did, I actually, had a conversation with one of the fathers, and he was saying that how he went to his daughter and he, apologized to his daughter, for some experiences, that they had within the family. And I even made a clip. Actually, one of them, I made a clip just of that part, and it's on part of my YouTube page, and it's one of the highest clips highest watched viewed clips that I have to date so far,
Okay.
because it's unheard of, even though it should be part of our everyday thing. We have to be able to, especially as men, to acknowledge when we're wrong and be vulnerable enough to say, I'm sorry,
Right.
because it balances out, especially when we talk to our boys. It balances out this whole thing of, you got to be tough, you got to suck it up, whatever.
Yep.
But it has to be a balance. And
Yep.
a lot of the issues that we've had in manhood, especially with our boys, is pushing them to that one side. So we're so much pushing so much of, you got to be strong, you got to hold your head up, whatever, that we don't learn how to deal with our emotions. And then
Right.
when we hit an emotional situation, we don't know how to react. So you
Right.
get guys that don't know how to cry, so they react in anger, which
Right.
sends us into the system.
Right.
So we have to be able to have those conversations. We have to be able to be vulnerable with our children,
Yes.
and to be able to give them that example of what it is and what it looks like, to have that balanced lifestyle. Definitely.
And so just to give you one more that people might relate to, if that's okay, is you need to use corporal punishment to get your children to comply. I get a lot of heat for this all the time, but I believe talking outweighs physical retribution. And the reason is because then it goes into that anger thing that you're talking about. You learn that if people are not complying with you, you respond with anger. You put your hands on them to get them to do what you want. Right? When in fact, if you talk to when you talk to your children, or when you talk to people, they get an understanding, and then there's a lesson out of that. I use my voice to get what I want. I use my voice to control my surroundings and my circumstances. And I don't beat up on people because they're not complying with what I want. Right? That is a legacy. That is a trauma-filled legacy. And it goes way back.
Yeah,
it goes back.
It goes way back.
Generations deep. Right? So I use this analogy. When you have a chain, right? Because historical trauma is a chain reaction. Somebody has to be that link that breaks free. Somebody has to be that link that opens up and says that enough is enough, and begin to, at them, start a new chain reaction of healing, a new chain reaction of trauma-free legacy. Somebody has to do it, right? And it becomes amazing when you begin to see this, right? Me and my siblings, we made the decision we're going to do opposite of what we had. You see what I'm saying? We're going to do the opposite of what we experienced.
Right.
And so we started building that chain, and now our children understand. We talk, we work it out, and no, you may not agree or I may not agree, but in the end, I just take stuff. It's okay.
Yeah, that's and this generation, the taking stuff seems to be worse than it was, like it's almost worse than the physical pain, you know what I mean?
Listen, and it is because you have just rocked the world. But you know what? They understand that I had to earn that, and because of what I did, I've no longer earned it.
Right.
And so I need to get back on track so I can have what I want. Because another thing that you're going to learn is that technically nothing in life is free.
Yep.
And so doing what you're supposed to be doing, being compliant, basically. I tell my son sometimes, if this was your job, you'd probably be fired because what? And you'd have no money, sir. Right? You'd have no money at all. Right? And so you're using it to teach different kinds of lessons as opposed to um as opposed to using physical and corporal punishment, because 5 minutes later they're going to be doing the same thing and they've learned absolutely nothing.
Right.
So those are the legacies that we are living towards, leaving towards trauma free.
Right. Dr. Nicole, I'm so glad to have you on. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yes. I'm going to give you the last word. Give us something, a word of advice, whatever, and then definitely give us whatever programs that you have to offer, and let my listeners know where they can find you at in order to get in contact with you for your services, or just to follow you, just to listen to you talk. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. This has been absolutely amazing. I can talk about this topic all day long. I love it. Let's see. It's easy to reach me. I'm at NicoleSJackson.com. That's where you're going to find the books and journals and programs that are offered, from emotional first aid to Power of Self-Care, to the Reflections to Healing Academy, which is the Reflecting to Healing Academy is a 52-week program. And the others are about 6 weeks or so. And you just dig into you and you begin to heal you. I can be followed on IG on Dr_Nickie. So Dr. Nikki. Best advice that I can give you is healing is intentional. You have to operate with intention. And when you're doing it, you need to operate with surgical precision. You need to make it your goal to remove Band-Aids, because they get soggy and fall off, and then here we are. You're going for the root cause when you're healing. We don't go surface. You go deep. And it's sometimes very difficult, but you got to push through. And make sure you have a support system that is where you are. The one thing I can tell you is I can always tell where somebody is in their healing by the people that they've surrounded themselves with. You have two kinds. You have the people who are surrounding themselves with people who will fall off when they fall off because it's easy and they're not really ready, but they're just getting their toes wet. And then those people are going to fall off with them and say nothing. And then you got those people, they've surrounded themselves with people who truly understand where they desire to be. And if they begin to fall off, they're going to check them. They're going to be like, nope, this is not what we're doing right now. You're going to be mad at me, and that's okay. And I might even be mad at you because you're not listening. Well, we're going to rock it till the wheels fall off. We're going to put some new wheels on and we're going to keep going. Right? So understand where you are in your healing. That's what I have. And also the goal is to not just survive, but to thrive. And there is a difference between the two.
Definitely. I thank you. Thank you so very much for being on. Thank you for those words. And I'm glad you said intentional, because I have two words that it was my words for the beginning of the year, but it kind of transferred to this year too. So it might just be my two words forever, which is intentional and balance. So that's those two things I keep at the forefront of my mind. Everything that I do, I want to be intentional about it. And when I go to do it, I want to make sure that the balance is there. Yes. Can't go too far to the left or to the right, because I want to maintain, this peace that I have. So I have to be careful and intentional about, what I do and how I move. So yeah, I'm glad that you said that. Again, Dr. Nicole, thank you so very much for being
Thank you
on.
for having me.
No problem, no problem. To all my listeners, I thank you guys for hanging around with us, listen to us talk, and I'm hoping and I pray that you guys are getting something out of these discussions that we're having. Again, this is Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and we're on a mission to help people to deal, to heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So until next time, we will see you guys next week. Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.